they're off. Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Welcome to Season 5 of Around the Track. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm your host, Shirl Penney, founder and CEO of Dynasty Financial Partners. I'm incredibly excited about this episode of Around the Track because I'm joined by a good friend and a great American, Scotty Neal, who is one of the founders and president of Horse Soldier Bourbon. But before I get started with the conversation with Scotty, I just want to give a quick shout out to my home away from home here in St. Pete, the Urban Stillhouse, where we're shooting today's video. And I would welcome any of you when you're visiting the St. Pete area, please come by and check out the Urban Stillhouse. It's one of the greatest restaurants in the area. So with that, Scotty, welcome. Thank you for sitting down and having this conversation around the track.
Yep.
So look, we've talked a little bit about the rule. There's only one rule on Around the Track, which is we're going to try to make our way around the virtual track together in less than 15 minutes.
Got it.
We're going to do the best we can to do that. I'm going to ask you 8 rapid fire questions.
Got it.
Each one of those questions represents one of the 8 furlongs that make up the mile in the virtual track that we're going to walk together. Are you ready?
I got it.
All right, let's go. I'm going to give you, I think, a nice easy one.
All right, lay it up.
To get you out of the gate. But just tell the audience a little bit about Scotty Neal personally and professionally.
So personally, I grew up here in Central Florida. My family has been in Florida since the 1830s. So I like to consider kind of a origin story as the state developed. So I've had a rough and rowdy citrus and orange groves. But myself personally, I always wanted to be in the Army. You see some people that say, you know, I wanted to be a fireman or be the president. I knew I always wanted to be in the Army. So right out of high school, I joined. And that took me on a 25-year journey all around the world. And I finally ended back here in Tampa at the headquarters of Special Operations. And that closed that chapter and began my next chapter, which is Horse Soldier Bourbon.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the legend of the Horse Soldier. Now, I know some of the viewers probably have seen the movie 12 Strong.
Yeah.
Be curious if you think that was an accurate depiction or not. But tell us a little bit about the mission that created the legend of the Horse Soldiers.
So the Horse Soldier's story really started on 9/11. If you think about it, it is this generation's Pearl Harbor, right? We were suddenly attacked. The country collectively had PTSD that day. And then I really like to talk about the day after when America came together. We were one and united. And America needed its response. America is very different than any other country in the world, right? We can recover very fast. So we were a set of the first soldiers that responded to those attacks and were forward deployed into Afghanistan. One of the teams was linked up with a resistance fighter that was riding around the mountains on horseback. Nobody knew this because we weren't able to communicate back to the rear at the time.
This was America's first response.
Very first, October of 2001. And the mission was to go behind the lines, work with indigenous fighters, and be prepared for the big Army, big Marine Corps in next spring of 2002 to come in and support you. And in less than 90 days, 90 Green Berets overtook the country. We met all the national objectives, and we started to leave at the time.
Yeah, well, God bless you. And one of the things that we've talked about is I'm thrilled that you're now on the other side of it, which is living the American dream as an entrepreneur. With the American dream is something, as you said, for 25 years you protected, and now you're having an opportunity to live it, which is incredible. And I think we'll talk a little more about how we maybe can inspire more veterans to do the same thing. So let's stick with Horse Soldier Bourbon, though. So you guys are retiring from the service. Why bourbon? And what was that process like? I can't imagine it was an easy process transitioning from service to becoming an entrepreneur and starting Horse Soldier Bourbon.
Well, when you transition in life, it doesn't matter if you're military or say you sold your business or there's a dramatic change. All of us go through it, and you have this period of uncertainty as what's next. And I call it the next ridge line. You could see it, and that's where you want to go. How do you get there? So it took us a few years. We did a few jobs, and we always knew that in the special forces community, we're called the expeditionary entrepreneurs. We're given little resources, a tough problem. Nobody else can seem to have the answer. You need to go do it. So we said, why aren't we the best business people? Let's find something. Sometimes you just need a thing, not the thing. And we always found ourselves discussing this around a bourbon. And you hear all these programs that say, do what you love to do. Well, I love to hang out with my friends, and I love to drink and talk about the day. And we became fascinated about the mechanics on how to make great bourbon. We realized we didn't have a term I like to use, knowledge dominance. We didn't know anything about something. It bothers us. So we began to research, and we used our skills from the military. We asked 1,000 questions. We used open source information. We interviewed owners of businesses, and we said, that's what we're going to do. And 10 years later, we've done it.
Yeah, I love it. God bless on that. One of my favorite things to talk about with you is leadership.
Yes.
And I love your perspective on leadership. And you are yourself, I believe, a great leader. You've been around and worked with both in the service and now on, in the public sector, great leaders as well. And I think it's a topic that our audience really likes, to think about and explore, because we're all trying to become better leaders over time. So how has your leadership approach, style, philosophy, how has it evolved over time? And I'm sure there are a lot of principles that you brought from your time in Special Forces to what you're doing now with Horse Soldier Bourbon as well.
I would think that the audience really understands that military has not only the education of leadership, from small unit leadership to lieutenants to sergeants, all the way up to sergeant majors, colonels, generals. And we have a education system that evolves that as you get higher in responsibility. Then there's the reflection of instincts. Are you a natural leader, right? Or are you a taught leader? And I benefited from the fact where in the military, you may have a officer, but you have a sergeant major. And business world are not used to the duality of two people in a business. One is the conscious, one is the driver. So as I evolved in becoming a leader, I could navigate through human aspects of compassion, right, manipulation, communication, all of these things I could do within my team and external. And then my military part is decisive action. Once we discuss and we come with a solution, implement it quickly and authoritatively, right? And then be adaptive and make adjustments. I've taken all of that and applied that in this business.
Yeah. One of the things I've enjoyed about our conversations too, we talk about part of leadership and being able to adapt. We talk at Dynasty, are you a thermostat or are you a thermometer?
Right.
Right. And the thermometer will tell you what the temperature is, but the thermostat sets the temperature.
Right.
Right. And that's the difference between, I think, a good leader and a great leader are the ones that can actually set the temperature. And you've told me that the Green Berets are in large part like the military, version of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Right. It's land and expand and figure out the mission.
Right.
Once you're there. So part of that means you have to adapt to really difficult situations.
Yeah.
So next question I have for you, whether it's business, or your time in service, how do you learn, to the extent you feel like you can learn, to make important, tough decisions while under extreme pressure?
That is the art of leadership, right? There are the known knowns and the unknown knowns, and then they're totally from right field.
Yeah.
And so in military planning, you try to cover and at least talk through this. You try to analyze and read through this. You formulate the plan, you begin movement. The key to successful leadership is during that movement, you adjust course quickly, right? Because everybody understands the plan and you make some rapid assumptions and assertions and you go. In this business, if we would have been process driven from the beginning, we wouldn't have made it. Now, as our company gets more mature, I'm trying to put processes backwards, but remain intuitive and instinctive forwards as well.
All right, Scotty, this is the audience participation
Okay.
part of our program. So I sent a note out to all the subscribers that are watching
Oh.
the show. And I like to ask what questions you want me to ask of upcoming guests. And I told them that we were going to have you on the show. The number one question that people wanted me to ask you was a question about what makes a great team, right? You've been on
Yes.
obviously some great teams over the course of your life. How would you describe the characteristics of a great team?
Right. Shared vision.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, when you build a team, it becomes the most important part. In special forces, when you first formulate a team, and I was only on 2 teams for 17 years,
Wow.
is you have to bond together. You have to get to know each other. That trust among each other is the most important building blocks. Once you have trust amongst each other, you can overlay difficulty and problems. Then you can guide, right, through leadership, the right direction of the team. And if the team isn't functioning and performing, you almost either have to correct it or disassemble it and rebuild it. If you don't have the foundation of a team set, you can't go the right direction.
Got it. Love that. All right, I'm going to cheat a little bit on this one. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to tell you in advance, there's going to be 2 questions in one,
Okay.
because to me, this is a really important one.
Yes.
What advice would you give to another veteran that is looking to make a transition to becoming an entrepreneur or joining a new entrepreneurial venture? And then let me reverse it. The second part of the question, what advice or suggestions would you make to someone like myself, who's an entrepreneur, who wants to bring more veterans onto the team?
My advice to veterans is, number one, is this is the American dream. If you look at previous generations, World War II, they came home and through some government programs like the GI Bill and the VA home loan, we built the greatest economic engine the world has ever seen. And I think the country needs you to serve today by becoming a great citizen, a great business leader, and a great entrepreneur. That's what I tell every veteran, right? Don't look for the solution with services. Get in the economy as fast as you can.
I love that.
What I tell business leaders are, there's only a language difference. In military, as you know, we love acronyms, right? We've got these clever sayings, we got these ways of doing things. If you can create that translative patience, these veterans will be escalators in your business. They won't go up the stairs. They will climb very fast. And if you are smart enough to put them in the right key locations at the right time, your company will benefit from it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. We've hired quite a number of veterans at Dynasty and are constantly looking to hire more. And I love the escalator. Absolutely. And they ride for the mission. There's just no
they
question.
Believe. And
Absolutely.
It's, if you put the right encouragement and leadership and way to grow, they will return to you tenfold.
Awesome. All right, we're approaching the finish line.
Okay.
We're down to our last question. This one won't be a surprise because it's the same question I've asked all 60 guests on Around the Track, which is to ask you about your Triple Crown. And what I mean by that, what is this big, seemingly unattainable goal that sits out there that all of us who own horses, we wake up every day and want to win a Triple Crown race. We want to ideally win all 3 of them, but it's a goal that statistically seems like it's almost too much to grab. So for you, Scotty Neal, you picked a time frame. It's a year, it's 5 years, it's the rest of your life, however you want to answer it. What is that big, bold, audacious Triple Crown goal that sits out there that you still want to get up every morning and run towards?
One, personally, can I do 3 great things in a lifetime? I've served my country, 1. I've built a great business, 2. I'm now seeking the idea of what could be the 3rd great thing. Next is I want to build this brand for 100 years, and am I building a legacy that things will begin to happen and I won't be alive while it continues? The last thing is the word balance, and it becomes overstated at times and underachieved by high energy leaders. I still get told, where's your balance? And if I could conquer that, I think that would be my 3rd great thing.
Yeah, well, I would never, ever bet against you, my friend. Thank you for sitting down and having this conversation on Around the Track.
Love it.
Thank you to all of you for tuning in for another edition of Around the Track.